hustlers. I can't go out like a buster. Come from a family full of hustlers. I did this song for my...
All right, so welcome to episode 8 of the Family Full of Hustle podcast. We got a very cool guest here today, my good friend Adam Morley, who's currently running for District 24 as state representative.
State representative. District 24, yeah.
All right, so like for Adam, man, for people who don't really know you, I know you. Eric, I think it's Eric's actually first time meeting you in person. So people who don't really know you, like kind of explain who you are and what you stand for and what you're running for.
Yeah, so again, Adam Morley running for State Representative District 24. That includes all of Flagler County, southern St. Johns County, and northwest Volusia. One of the big things that I think people should know is that I'm from this district. I was born and raised here, places like Princess Place Reserve. I grew up there, swam in the first in-ground pool in Florida. I've got my family here. I'm raising my family here with my wife and son. We're here in Crescent Beach, and we're small business owners. So we kind of understand the value of small business and what it means to our community. Clean water is a big issue for me and part of my platform. Home rule, affordable living. There's just a lot of things that I'm really focused on that really just benefit and strengthen the community. It's not the partisan issues that turn people off to politics. What I'm trying to do is bring people together on issues that we can agree on. We have a clean water economy here in Florida, and if we continue to treat our water like crap and flush it down the toilet, we're throwing a ton of money out the door. So those are the issues that I kind of want to address and focus on.
As far as clean water, what are some things we can do to like realistically like?
So
what are the issues that we're currently facing with our water system and like?
So some of our biggest water issues in the state come from excess nutrients, nitrogen and phosphates that are ending up in the rivers and the streams, even our groundwater, and that's mostly from two main sources. One, it's excessive nutrients runoff from agriculture and faulty old aging septic tanks. So there's two different areas that need to be addressed. And if we don't address both of them, then we're not really going to find solutions. But what's happening is that you get this excess nutrient runoff. It enters into the water and it's nutrients. So you have things like algae that eat up those nutrients, and you have these massive blooms. Like down in South Florida, you hear about the red tide or the blue-green toxic algae. They just thrive on all of this nutrients, and then they blow up into a much larger bloom that ends up leading to fish kills. It depletes the oxygen. And if you look into it, the communities down there, the local economies down there suffer tremendously because when you have the stench of dead fish all around, people aren't coming to vacation there. Like the fishing charter captains aren't there. People aren't going to the restaurants to eat. They're not going to the beaches. Right. Like it completely stops the local economy when you have these massive fish kills and these algae blooms, like the one in 2018, I believe.
I remember that. It was crazy.
Yeah, and it lasted like almost 18 months, I want to say. I can't remember, but it was ridiculous. It lasted way too long, and it put a lot of people in a lot of tough positions.
Yeah, that red algae shit is scary, bro. How's that? Do you even know how that's even created?
So it's natural. The Carenia brevis is the organism that actually creates what's known as red tide, and when it blooms, it actually causes respiratory issues. So when in large numbers, what happens is it starts getting agitated in the water and will create respiratory issues from people. The blue-green toxic algae, that's the it'll come to me in a minute, but it's a neurotoxin. So these are very unhealthy for people. And then you have the health aspects of it as well. It's not just about the money. A lot of times we like to focus on the money, but there's also health involved as well, and it affects pets. It affects everything. So when you have these blooms, and the blooms again generally are natural to a certain extent, but when you're feeding them, when you're pouring fuel on the fire and making that fire build that much more, that's the problem. That's what we're doing, and that's what we need to stop doing. And we can do that with policies that are already on the books. We have polluter pays laws in the state's constitution. However, it doesn't really have any teeth, and it's not getting enforced. So the largest of polluters that are responsible for the majority of the excess nutrient runoff, they're just sitting back and letting taxpayers foot the bill for the cleanup costs.
Oh, wow.
And so really they're just kind of laughing their way to the bank, because we as taxpayers are the ones that are funding the cleanup of the mess that they've made.
Right.
So like I think that we need to put some more teeth back into those existing laws so that we can enforce those laws.
So they're already been passed?
The laws are already there. The laws have been passed. However, funding is the issue. When you don't fund the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, when you pull the funding out of that, they're no longer able to enforce the laws on the books. And that's exactly what's happened over the past two state administrations, is that they have pulled funding away from these enforcement agencies that allow us to go after the corporate interests that will create these messes. In fact, under Scott's administration, when he was governor, in the first year of his administration, there was an 86% decrease in the funding and enforcement of environmental regulations. Meaning they're just like, it just became a free-for-all, and then the messes that were created, we as taxpayers ended up footing the bill for that. So it's ridiculous. It's something that I'm super passionate about stopping, so that we're not having to pay those additional taxes. Like, if you're profiting from like making messes for people, then you need to be taking some of those profits and cleaning that mess up, rather than putting that responsibility onto we the people.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So is it like just like big companies here, like big like agricultural companies here?
So a lot of it comes from, and a lot of it is historic as well. Like Lake Okeechobee, have you guys heard of the discharges? That's what's causing a lot of the water issues down in South Florida. Yeah. So what happens is historically they've kind of used Lake Okeechobee as a reservoir to irrigate the farmlands, usually the sugar crops, and then for decades they would back pump into the lake with all of that excessive nutrients, and then all those nutrients would kind of settle on the bottom, and then they would get agitated over the years. The sugar farmers are no longer back pumping, but there's still decades and decades worth of nutrients that are sitting in Lake Okeechobee from that practice. And so every time we have big rain events or storm events, what happens is that they discharge the lake, because there's a berm around the lake, and if it fills up too high, that levee might break, that berm might break and flood the people to the south. So they have these two man-made canals, east and west, that they open up the floodgates and drain Lake Okeechobee and all that excess nutrients out to the coastal waters. And that's where you're getting those big algae blooms, because you have that fire hose of fuel getting sprayed, getting flushed out to the coast, and that's having a huge impact on the water quality.
Yeah, that's wild. So it's pretty much like a little...
How do you even get to this point?
I'm gonna step away for a second as we... There you go. All right,
cool.
Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, you're about to snap your arm. Snap your thing.
Yeah, I like that fisher pole. I don't want to break it.
That's crazy. So it's pretty much just like a reservoir of just like all these like nutrients just sitting there, and every storm hits, there's like a little...
Yeah, exactly. Every time they discharge, every time the Lake Okeechobee water level rises too high, they start to get worried, because it's aging infrastructure. The dam around the lake is getting old, and so the higher that water gets, the more pressure on that dam, and they're like, if this, and it's happened before, it happened twice 100 years ago now, where it broke and it actually flooded the communities to the south, killing thousands of people. And so
in Florida?
In Florida, yeah.
What?
Yeah. So
it's like nothing breeze over.
So
1920?
It was in the I think it was in the 20s, 26 or 27 maybe, during one of those big hurricanes that it breached it. It started to flow, and those communities to the south, which have only gotten larger since then, got flooded. And so yeah, huge loss of life. And so I understand the concern and wanting to make sure that doesn't happen again, but we've got to figure out a way to make sure that the water's clean and send it south through the Everglades, the filtration process, because the Everglades is also starving for fresh water, and really reduce the amount of discharges out to the coasts. Let it flow, let it seep through the historic path that the water used to take.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was on your site earlier, I think it was last night actually, and I was one of your focus points was getting a better return on investment for taxpayer dollars.
Yeah,
like
that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm saying like break that down.
I always want to know about that.
But we can't even choose where our taxpayer money go.
Right. But we can. At the state legislature, state house, we determine the budget, which means that we determine where that money gets spent. And right now, it's oftentimes getting spent in the way of subsidies or different mechanisms to attract certain businesses to the area. And there's always a staff summary to break it down on the bills, how much it's going to cost, what the return is going to be for such incentive or policy that they put in place. And on some of the things that they have cut in recent years, we're literally investing 50 cents and making $2 back, bringing $2 back for every 50 cents that we invest with taxpayer dollars.
Damn.
And that's a good
amazing return.
That's a really good return.
Thank you.
Right, you're quadrupling your.
But and that's usually to industries like film, to attract movies to be made here, and then what that's going to do is you have all of the residuals. When you have all of the camera crews, all of the actors and everything, you create a little mini economy every time there's a film that's produced, because they're shopping in the local stores, they're buying a lot of stuff to make that happen there in those communities that they're filming in.
Right.
And so there's that boost to the local economy. We cut all of those incentives out. We stopped helping the film industry in allowing them to come here. And so now they're going to Georgia, and all of that money is going
that is true.
all of that money is going to Georgia now. And other states that are saying, no, we're welcoming to the film industry. Come on in, because we understand the value that it brings to the state. Unfortunately, Florida was like, we don't see it that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's a shame. There are areas that I would like to see kind of incentivized, and areas that I would like to see fend for themselves. If you're polluting, if you're causing problems, if you're creating more of a controversy and a mess being there, I don't really see it as our role as legislators to help you out.
Right.
But if you're bringing a benefit to the community, more than just a financial benefit, if you're bringing goodwill, if you're bringing good feelings, and you're having entertainment and things that actually make people want to come here.
Yeah, right.
That's the good stuff. But when you're talking about like subsidizing fracking, that's going to pollute our waterways and poison our air and just produce more plastic, it's like, no, I don't think we should be investing tax dollars in this kind of industry.
Right.
We should be investing tax dollars in industries that actually have a real long-term benefit to our state and to our local economies.
Can you explain fracking to the people who don't know what it is?
So fracking.
I don't know what it is.
Yes.
We're gonna just act like we know.
So fracking, hydraulic fracturing, what they do is it's a type of oil and gas extraction. They've got this high pressure pipe that they pump into the ground with a mixture of, we don't really know because it's proprietary solutions that they are pumping through this hose, and it actually creates pressure that breaks open and fractures the ground and releases the oil and gas for extraction. The problem is all of that stuff that they're pumping down in there, like, we have a very porous ground here
Yeah.
in Florida.
Yeah.
And so all of those chemicals that they're pumping into the ground have the potential of seeping into our groundwater. And we have the most extensive spring system in the world where all of that water, our drinking water, is connected. We've seen in other states where they've allowed fracking the cases of earthquakes going up, like tap water coming out of their tap out of wells. You could light that on fire because of the chemicals coming out of it. And so, like our legislature over the years, they've started to come around, but they're not really doing what needs to be done to make sure that that doesn't happen in Florida. In fact, my opponent, back when he first got into office, voted in favor of fracking and has been on that position, that side of fracking, since he's been there.
When we ran a few years back, that wasn't his first time running, was it?
That wasn't his first time running, no. The first time that I ran, it was in a special election against him. He won that special election, and I've challenged him every time since then. My numbers have continued to improve. That's why I continue to stick with it. Like you guys, I'm sure you guys already know. Just because you didn't succeed the first or second time, you don't just throw your hat in and say never mind. You're like, you know what? No, we're gonna go.
One win could change things.
And exactly, it's amazing how quick things can change. But you know what?
You win by losing a lot, man.
And you're not gonna win if you don't put your foot in the in the ring. You gotta stay active. You gotta hustle. So that's what I'm doing. Every time I run, I'm building more momentum, more of a base, getting my name out there to more people, focusing on different areas where I didn't focus the last time, like trying to reach new people, because politics, unfortunately, it still is kind of a money game. And in order to reach people, you need that funding. And so, because I've always been kind of the underfunded candidate in this race, I've had to focus on different parts of the district, because it's a big district, and really kind of get my name out there to people so that they know who I am. I can't just flood the market and get my name saturated in the entire district. I've really got to focus on different areas and let them get to know me.
Especially when that's important to you.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of, well, me and Eric kind of transitioned into the mobile home industry. Affordable living, how you plan on making, well, because like I don't even know what our living is in comparison to like other states, but like I know here locally it's stressful finding a home that people can afford and like still be able to live like a decent
For me
life.
not being here, I can see the difference in like affordable living in this area versus like another city or another state.
Right.
You can see it's a big difference on like where someone could actually find somewhere to live. You know what I mean? It's almost like a half, not a half. You know what I mean? Here.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the reasons it's kind of getting out of reach for a lot of people to live here is because of these investment companies coming in and they're purchasing all of these homes that would historically have gone to long-term residents, folks that are renting. But because we're a destination community in Northeast Florida, people want to visit here. So these investment companies are coming in and they're buying up these single-family homes and they're turning them into businesses, short-term rentals, Airbnbs. Exactly. And so what that's doing is, like, for the price of 1 week, you're getting what they used to get for an entire month's rent.
Right.
And so these companies are coming in and they're buying up all of the available housing. What does that do? That jacks the prices up.
And when it's shrinking the market.
It's shrinking the market, supply and demand. And so when you have these companies that come in and they start restricting the market for available places to live, it drives the rent prices up. I've got people that I grew up with here in this community who can no longer live here because they're getting pushed out by the high cost of living. And so if we're able to somehow enact policies that say, you know what, we've got to make sure that communities have a voice in this matter. And that kind of ties back to home rule as well. Right now, right now, communities are not able to pass policies that will help in this area because Tallahassee said, you know what, we're taking that power away from you. We're taking away your home rule, which is in the state's constitution, meaning that our communities can have a say in addressing a lot of these issues, a lot of these matters. But Tallahassee is like, nope, we know what's best for you. We're taking that away.
So would it be safe to say that home rule is like the people's voice?
100%, yeah. Because when, like, home rule means that I can gather a couple of my friends and we would go down to our local city or county commission and say, hey, this is a problem that we're having here in our community. It's impacting us on a daily basis. Let's pass some ordinance, some policy that addresses this. And because it's at the local level, we usually have a relationship with the people sitting at the city or county commission because they live here. They also see the same problems and are more willing to work with residents. Now, when they take away home rule, when they take away the local government's ability to listen to the people and address the concerns of the people, those same people now have to take more time off of work, organize, drive all the way out to Tallahassee to talk to their representative, and then get them to change an entire state policy. Changing an entire state policy is much more difficult than changing a local policy.
What goes into changing a local policy?
Yeah.
People, like they show up at a city or county commission meeting, or they call their local official and they say, hey, we've got this problem I'd like to talk about. Now, because that's usually more of a full-time position for them, they're always available, or should always make themselves available, in my opinion, to listen to these concerns. You go to the city county commission meeting and say, hey, these are the problems, and they'll look into it. If you get enough people talking about these issues, they'll look into it and find a way to address it. And they'll usually address it in the way that has support of the people. So you've got to kind of organize all of your friends and be like, hey, we're having an issue with like these street lights or the lack of street lights, or we're having flooding issues in this section of our neighborhood. We want to address. You get your neighbors together and you bring that to the city and county commission, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, we're aware of this problem now. Let's get our different agencies on it to open up the swales to allow for better drainage, or they start putting into motion the necessary things to fix and address the problem. But when you have to get them to change an entire state policy, you're talking decades sometimes on finally getting the state finally getting a solution, because it's just a bureaucratic nightmare. Like you have to convince so many people who've got so many other issues that they're focused on,
who don't even live in
your community, and trying to convince them of a problem that they're not having to deal with on a daily basis is difficult. But when you have that kind of pressure on a local level, it gets addressed a lot better.
So home rule gives that power back?
Home rule gives that power back. Okay. So like I'm running to kind of restore and protect home rule, because I believe that there's enough people informed and like passionate enough about making their community stronger that they're going to be able to effectively enact the change that we need to see. What works for Jacksonville doesn't necessarily work for Palm Coast.
Right.
Like we need to be able to have that ability to address issues at a local level. And Tallahassee has been systematically passing laws taking that ability away from us.
Oh wow, bro! I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I don't think most of us would even know that. I think that's one of the problems.
I don't think a lot of people are even like hip to the concept of home rule.
They're not. Like
I've never heard of it before. Just now.
Like it. And that's kind of the funny thing, because I'm like, what do you mean you haven't heard of home rule? This is like a huge, but it's one of those things. It really is one of the sexy issues that everybody always kind of focuses on, and so it kind of gets put to the side. But it's one of those things that's really important.
Because most of the time, all you hear is like taxes. That's like the number one topic for any political campaign. So like everything else is like, a lot of people don't pay attention to it because they don't understand it. So it's like,
and when they're talking about taxes, I'm always interested in which taxes specifically are people talking about. Are we talking about the taxes that are allocated to our infrastructure, or property taxes? What taxes specifically are we talking about? And sadly, a lot of us are not going to be the most informed on that issue, and so they resort to the oh, all taxes.
Right,
It's
all
like,
taxes is like,
well, that's a little bit too broad, and you can't really narrow that down. We need to start focusing on the tangible, like what it is specifically people are having an issue with, and finding the solutions for those. You can't just throw out a broad issue and say do something about this. It's
Right.
Right.
because we need a little bit more direction than that.
Another one of your focus points, fair elections. I guess my question would be like, and I'm speaking just, I guess, just like locally and stuff here. Like, do you feel like the elections are unfair in a way, or is it shaped in a way that that was not benefiting certain people?
So, in my ideas for fair elections, one of the big things is closing the write-in candidate loophole. And I'll give you a local example here. We just had a sheriff's race. The sheriff, like
In St. John's?
Yeah, in St. John's County. It serves the sheriff's office serves everybody, but it's a partisan race. And because we are a closed primary state, when you have what happened was two Republicans ran, and it was just two Republicans that were running.
Right.
And had it only been those two Republicans running, it would have been, that race would have been open to all registered voters in the county. They would have been, even Democrats would have been able to, NPAs, independents, all of them, everybody would have been able to vote for the next sheriff that serves the entire county.
Right.
However, because of we need to close the write-in candidate loophole, because what happens is whoever they are, it could be a candidate themselves, it could be the party, they get basically a dummy candidate to file to run as a write-in candidate. Their name won't even appear on the ballot.
Oh, that's what you're saying, write-in.
Yeah,
Okay.
So when you have your ballot and it says write in the name of the person that you want instead, when they get a write-in candidate, what that does is it closes it down to just that party. Here in St. John's County, when they did that, it locked 93,000 voters out of voting for the next sheriff that's going to.
So if I'm understanding this right, if they by doing this write-in loophole, they can lock out, let's say, all Democrats and only Republicans can vote on this.
Yep.
What the?
So we have so we have again we
it's
have
almost
a
like those votes don't even count.
well they don't count because you don't get to
right,
because
sense.
when you go and get your ballot to fill out,
Yeah.
that race isn't even on your ballot unless you're a registered Republican.
Wow.
So even though the sheriff serves the entire county, has a lot of say that impacts everybody in the county, because it's a partisan race, it gets locked down to just the one party.
What the? That doesn't even seem legal. Like,
Yeah, how did we get here? To be fair, in heavily Democratic counties and districts, the Democrats do the same thing.
Right.
So they
So either way it's unfair.
either way
depending on the party.
it's unfair to the people in those areas.
Right.
Whether sometimes it's unfair, like in the red counties, it's unfair to the Democrats in that community.
Right.
In the blue counties, it's unfair to the Republicans in that county.
what's that called? Like you said.
I
know the write-in candidate loophole. Is it the same way in Flagler?
Yeah, it's the same way in Flagler.
Wow.
In fact, it's happened with county. I'd have to look back, but it's happened. It's happened a lot in Flagler County as well, with commission seats where you'll have a couple Republicans running, no Democrats running. When you don't have another party running or another candidate outside of the one party that is running, it makes it an open election for all registered voters. And so what the party or one of the candidates does, again, is they get a dummy candidate to file the paperwork to say that they're running as a write-in candidate. And what that does is it closes that election down, closes that race down to only members of
because obviously the write-in candidate has to be from the same party.
Right.
Right.
Ideally.
Yeah. And so you're not going to see that name, and what happened here in St. Johns County, as right after the primaries, because again, like that. It was to close the primaries down so only Republicans could vote. After the primaries, that write-in candidate withdrew his candidacy, giving the seat.
It's just a finesse.
Right. Finesse
Yeah,
game.
it's a finesse game.
Exactly.
Loophole or
Really
loophole.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is, and it's being taken advantage of. So if we're able to close the write-in candidate loophole so that they can't do that, that's going to allow us a louder voice in these elections. In St. Johns County, 93,000 voters would have been able to have a voice in the next sheriff of St. Johns County, but they didn't get to have that voice. And
that is crazy.
And most of those people probably don't even know.
Especially with the sheriff office, it's a little. It's a little different than I guess someone running for state senate. Cause like you're either Democrat or Republican. With a sheriff, you're still protecting Democrats.
Exactly. You're supposed to be serving everybody, and the sheriff decides the policies on whether they have body cameras or not, or different things that are hot topic issues in communities right now. And so if you're not able to have a broad spectrum of voters kind of pushing you on different issues, then those issues aren't going to be listened to. So we've got to close the write-in candidate loophole so that everybody has a voice.
Are there any other unfair practices in elections?
Right.
That you would like to focus on?
I would say that closing the write-in candidate loophole is probably one of the more important things. Then there's a lot of talk about open primaries or jungle primaries, semi-open primaries. I personally am in favor of a semi-open primary.
Yeah, what's that mean?
So, in order to explain what that means, again, we have closed primaries in the state of Florida. Democrats can only vote in the Democratic primaries. Republicans can only vote in the Republican primaries. Independents, NPAs, the people who are like, you know what, I don't want to associate with either party, they don't get a voice at all in the primaries. Our tax dollars and the tax dollars of independents, NPAs, that's going to hold these elections, like taxation without representation. These individuals are literally helping fund elections that they're not allowed to vote in.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
Because they would have to register with a major party in order to vote in the primary. So and a lot of people don't like open primaries. I get that. Republicans don't want Democrats voting in their primary and kind of swaying the vote there, and Democrats don't want Republicans voting in their primary, swaying the votes there, even though it could very easily cancel each other out. But a semi-open primary, what that allows is for all of the other voters, if you're not a Democrat, if you're not a Republican, all of the NPAs, no party affiliation, the independents, Green Party, whatever, it allows them to choose which party, which primary they want to vote in without actually having to become a card-carrying member of the Republican or the Democratic Party. They're independent for a reason. There's something there that says, you know what, I don't want to associate
case by case.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're funding these elections, and they should still be able to have a voice if they wanted in any of these elections rather than being locked out. So a semi-open primary would allow the people that are not registered with the major party pick which primary election they would like to vote in. And I think that would be that nice compromise between having open primaries where everybody can vote wherever they want, and closed primaries where only registered members of that party can vote in that primary. It's kind of like
the middle.
It's the middle ground that kind of like there are still people who disagree with it, but the people who are right now being locked out of elections would then have a voice and would be able to help determine the outcome. Because right now, the way that it works is after the primary, what does each party do? They dump all of their resources into trying to get those NPAs and those independents to vote for them. Right after they were locked out of the election to decide who it is that was going to be running, those parties are now like courting all of these people that they literally just locked out of voting in the primary. So I think that would go a long way in getting more people engaged, because NPAs, no party affiliation, that's the fastest growing party affiliation.
Yeah.
Like there is. People are not flocking to the two major parties. They're like, you know what, I don't.
A lot of them are getting fed up.
A lot of them are getting fed up, and I get it too. That's why I stay away from the partisan issues. I'm kind of fed up with the partisanship. I want to focus on the issues that help people, help the planet, help paychecks. Like those are
Planet Paychecks.
People, planet, paychecks. Like we need to make sure that people are being taken care of, that our natural resources are being taken care of, and that the local economy is thriving, so that if we do have some national economic downturn, our local economies are able to withstand that, are able to thrive through those slow times.
Mm-hmm. And I also noticed that you're you're for the legalization of marijuana here in Florida. I know it's already been passed medically, so you're pushing for recreation.
So medical marijuana, while it
I'm a
passed,
card holder, by the way.
So here's the thing. This brings up a great point: is that it had to pass via an amendment.
Mm-hmm.
The legislature wasn't going to act on it, so it had to go to the election box and get support from the people. It passed with overwhelming majority, just like a lot of other constitutional amendments in recent years. However, the state legislature, they simply disagree with it, which means they disagree with the majority of
the people.
The majority of the people, and they have been actively fighting the implementation of these amendments, of these laws that were voted on and supported by the overwhelming majority of Floridians.
You know why it is?
Left, right, all of. Do I know why it is? Right here. This is why it is. And that it's this and overly stubborn ideologies that just won't, like that some people just can't get.
I feel like it's mostly that.
There's a lot of that, but there's also a lot of money in it. Now, me personally, I've been a captain before I graduated high school. I'm random drug tested. I've never really had the desire to partake in any of that. Like it's just not me. But for me, I thought we were in a free society. Like this is something that individuals should be able to choose for themselves whether they partake or not. It's also like we know that it's I don't even advocate for it. I'm advocating for the freedoms. But if we're going to allow tobacco, if we're going to allow alcohol, if we're going to allow all of these other industries,
very dangerous,
very dangerous drugs and
food, all types of stuff.
Yeah, like if we're going to allow this, but then we're going to like stop that, it doesn't make a lot of sense, especially when we're looking at a huge revenue source that could help boost, again, local economies, the state economy. We can use that funding to help with education and mental health. A lot of the different things that are going underfunded right now, we can use the funds raised via taxes. Like we've taxed cigarettes, we've taxed alcohol, we can tax marijuana. Use those
it's
funds.
Not taxed now, is it? because when I go to the dispensary
for the medical, right? It's not medical is not taxed right now, but it's also because it's so limited. Medical is more expensive than if you were to open the market up.
And
prices would come down, even with the added tax that goes to funding mental health, because we know that there are serious health concerns when juveniles start smoking or start eating edibles when they're young. If they use it, there are addiction issues there are development issues there. So that's why, just like with cigarettes and alcohol, we have age limits, and we need funding to help educate minors and say, hey, I know you don't like it, but just work with us and wait until you're a little bit older so that you can make a responsible decision on your own. We're not going to tell you can't ever do it. Just wait a little bit longer, because it's in your best interest. It's in the best interest of the community that you wait, because there are problems if you get started and use too much too
Yeah.
soon, too young.
Yeah.
So
So when you said like I guess your response to this question was like the reason why they're so stubborn about just smoothly passing these laws is money. How are they profiting from being stubborn?
That's what I want to know. Like,
Like,
how are they
not-
profiting from not?
so
Or you mean like
they're getting reelected is how they're profiting.
True.
So when you look at who's funding the representatives,
Right.
the campaigns that are
Ideology.
that are behind the obstruction to passing these amendments or passing these laws, it's the alcohol and tobacco industry, because they know that it's going to be cutting into their profits. Where it has been legalized, they have seen a decrease in the sales of other substances, whether it's alcohol
opiates, stuff like that? Or
and opiates as well. There's been a decrease in pharmaceuticals that are purchased because people are using legal marijuana to get off of those highly addictive prescription drugs.
Also, point of information. I'm not looking away because like it's
Yeah.
bright, but like
so
bad.
The sun's coming out.
I'm like keep
fog
looking
is
down,
coming out.
just to get a break. Then I look up.
No, you're good.
But yeah, it's crazy. I was just if it ever does get like recreationally passed in Florida, where it's kind of like how it is in like California and Colorado.
And to be fair, based on the trends and based on all the other states, it's not a if, it's a when.
Yeah,
When.
that's what I've been telling them. That's only a matter of time.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time, and with that acknowledgement of only a matter of time, we need to make sure that when it does happen, it happens in a responsible manner that takes into account all of the concerns that people may have with it becoming legal. We can't just say, we're going to make this happen, deal with it, whatever. No, we need to invite those critics in, give them a voice and say, okay, what are your concerns? And then figure out ways to alleviate as much of those concerns as possible. Because again, it's going to be happening. Like, it's not a matter of if, it's when. And we want those voices, because some people will get so enthusiastic about an idea that they will overlook all of the potential negative consequences, the unintended consequences, because they're so enthusiastic about making something happen. So that's what we need the other side, the opposing side for. We need them to help us see the potential unintended consequences so that we can address them head on before it actually becomes an unintended consequence. So making sure people, and those of us who are in favor of it, need to make sure that we are open to listening to the other side's criticism and being able to decide and look into whether or not these concerns have any data, have any science to back them up. And if they do, then figure out ways to address those issues.
I guess last but not least, man, you want to touch on your energy policy a little bit?
So, state energy policy. It's a big thing that since I've been running, I've been pushing for. Clean energy, huge fan. It's a clean technology, which means clean, high-paying jobs.
You mean like solar?
Solar, yeah. Solar, wind, lots of different clean energy technologies that are out there that are, again, they provide great paying jobs in industries, fast-growing industries. But more importantly, it's about breaking up the monopolies. And right now, you don't really get to choose who your power provider is.
Like FBI.
You have, we have in the state, we have state-sanctioned monopolies. So you have different areas that if you live in this area, this is who's providing the power. We know that free market systems are good. They help with bringing down prices, because when you have competition and innovation in a marketplace, everybody strives to be able to provide the best service at the lowest cost to consumers who have a choice. But if consumers don't have a choice, if your only choice is FPL,
they jack prices and it's like whatever.
They get to jack prices and you don't have a say. But if you can say, you know what, I don't like your business operation. I don't like your business model. I don't like where you're investing
I'm
your
gonna go over
profits.
here.
I'm going to go over
Yeah.
here.
It's like that in Texas. You
We
know?
have,
Yeah, it's like that in North Carolina.
You can like go to different.
No, you
we're-
only have one.
we're one of,
No, I mean in Texas they got multiple. You can like
they do.
choose
we're,
who you want to
we're
go
one
to.
of
That's
three.
dope.
We're one of 3 states that do it this way. Everybody else is,
Really?
yeah, everybody else is.
What are
trans-
other 2 states?
I'd have to look that up again. I just remember the number that were
Because like I thought this was the only way it was. I thought that's how life was.
Me too. I thought it was like, well,
And texting my homegirl was like, "Hey, guy, I'm shopping around for electric companies. I want to see who got." I'm like, "What the hell?
Yeah.
I didn't know you had that option."
all right.
Yeah, and when consumers get to shop around, it benefits because that brings prices down. Again, that's kind of ties into the cost of living, affordable living. When-
Customer quality has to go up because you now have to be good.
because you have to be
Right.
good because you have your competition next door who's like,
Right.
hey, these guys aren't providing
Right.
the best service.
Mhm.
Let me offer you this, and they're competing for it, and so that means they're having to invest more of their profits into advancing the technology that's going to
Right.
bring the cost down and bring the service level up. But right now,
They can just like
they're,
whatever, let it
they're
ride.
like, look at all of these profits, and nobody else is going to steal it from us. So let's do something ridiculous,
Right.
like buy our CEO another yacht or something.
Right.
Just
because we can.
Just because we can, because we
Yeah.
have those profits. No, I want that competition in the marketplace. I want people to be able to say, you know what, you kind of screwed me over on my last
Right.
electric bill. I'm going over here
Right.
now, and
Yeah, fight for that because I want to start an electric company.
I'm saying, like, for real.
Get into the energy game.
Exactly.
there you go.
That'd be dope, man. Well, I definitely appreciate your time. Do you have anything else that you would like to expound on? Anything at all?
You know, honestly, I think we covered so much that I'm really satisfied. I've done a lot of different little chats and interviews and stuff, and feel that you guys definitely covered a lot more ground than
bro, that's
than
what
I
I really
have
wanted to hit
in
on.
a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
in a lot of other
Yeah.
interviews that I've done. So, no, I appreciate it. We covered pretty much everything I need.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again. In the elections, when should people start getting out? I know it's already early voting's already started.
So we're past the primaries.
Okay.
That was August 18th.
Wow.
So we are on to November. So the big ticket in November, first Tuesday of November, is election day.
Okay.
And people just need to make sure that they're registered to vote and they get out and vote.
And you can vote online now, or like
You
mail?
you can't vote online. You can do different straw polls. That's something that I've been posting about, how we have won different straw polls. So there's like the only online voting there is doesn't actually count in the election. It's just to kind of show where people are leaning, but it doesn't actually allow you to vote. You still have to go down to your local voting precinct and fill in those bubbles and
Gotcha.
feed it to the machine so that they can actually record your vote. But yeah, no online voting. You could register to vote online. You can sign up for vote by mail online, and you can do a lot. But when it comes to actually voting,
Gotta get up.
you gotta get up. You gotta get out from behind that screen and get down to the voting precinct and cast that ballot.
Well, definitely, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
All
Go
right.
out like a buster, come from a family full of hustlers. I can't go out like a buster, come from a family full of hustlers. I did this song for my brother.